reading these words of Jesus in the gospel, I can't help but think how his words about giving us peace found an echo in two historic moments that all of us have witnessed in the last couple of months. First, on Easter Sunday, Pope Francis gave his special blessing to Rome and to the world, the so-called Urbi et Orbi blessing. And before he did this, when he was wheeled out on the balcony, he wished everyone a happy Easter and then explained that he would have his master of ceremonies read his message. And although Pope Francis was weak, the message he wrote was very strong. And it was an insistent plea for peace in the world. He specifically mentioned more than a dozen different places in the world where terrible war is tearing the world apart. And he begged for peace. We now know that this was the last wish of a dying man. In the same way, Jesus spoke the words we just heard in the gospel on the night before he died. And then on the 8th of May, when Pope Leo was elected and the announcement was made and he emerged on the balcony of St. Peter's, his very first words to the crowd were "La pace sia con tutti voi," peace be with you all. And then he went on to say that this was the first greeting of the risen Christ. And we see that in the Gospels of Luke and John. So, the words of Christ before his death and after his resurrection were echoed by Pope Francis before his death and by Pope Leo at the beginning of his new life, if you will, as Pope. It is as if the risen Lord in the last 2 months has been shouting to the world, begging all of us to accept his gift of peace. It's important to remember that this peace is more than the absence of war, although it includes that. One of the great theologians of the church defines peace as the tranquility of order, a right relationship with God, inner peace, social justice, and a commitment to building a world where all people can thrive in harmony. The tranquility of order. And thinking about all of this caused me to notice more than ever how the church has a preoccupation with peace. And we see that in the prayers of the Mass. For one thing, the words of Jesus in the gospel are echoed in every single Mass just before the sign of peace. The priest says, "Lord Jesus Christ, who said to your apostles, 'Peace I leave you, my peace I give you.'" Every Mass, we repeat those words and add to that the other times that peace is mentioned in between the Lord's Prayer and the moment of communion, just that small interval. There are a total of 7 times, I counted them, that the word peace comes up in just that short interval, yes, the church has a preoccupation with peace. And all of this gives rise to a question. If the leaders of the church are insistent on peace, and through them the Lord is crying out to the world to accept his gift of peace, and our liturgical prayer, in turn, asks for this gift of peace again and again, what are we supposed to do about it? Peace, after all, is received, not achieved. It is clear that we do not and cannot arrive at it on our own. So what do we do? And here I'd like to share with you a simple analogy that helps me, at least, to understand what we can do. Imagine a pond of water with the branch of a nearby tree reaching out over the pond. And since the tree is covered with dew, the water drips from the end of that branch into the center of the pond, drop by drop. And each drop becomes a ripple on the surface of the pond, and the ripples form expanding rings which go out until the whole pond is moving with that steady rhythm. Now, if you want to quiet the surface of the pond, what do? You certainly do not try holding down those rings of water. You'll just cause more motion on the surface. If you really want to stop those rings, that motion of water, you've got to do something about the dripping water, which is at the center of the motion. And that's how it is in working for peace. We can try to bring peace to the troubled surface of humanity on whatever level you want, but we will not have success unless we go to the center, to the heart of humanity, and make sure that everything is right between us and Christ, who gives peace. Attempts to bring peace on the surface will never work, because peace must begin in the center, in the heart of humanity. And because of that, each one of us can do something to bring peace to the world by looking at our own heart. If we are close to Christ and cultivate that personal relationship with him through prayer and a full sacramental life and following the Lord's word in our daily life, then we have the source of peace within us, and then we can share it with others. You cannot give what you do not have. So it starts in our heart. But then we can share it with others by, first of all, praying for them. We cannot touch their hearts, but God can. And we share it, of course, by good example, by being people of peace. In my own daily prayer for peace, I always add a petition for an end to all war, an end to all violence, and an end to all lack of charity. That's what I pray for. Prayer as an example will bear a lot more fruit than all the negotiations and law enforcement agencies in the world, in case anyone hasn't noticed that, because prayer will go to the center of the pond, and then we will have peace, not as the world gives it, a peace that is temporary and shallow and fragile, but rather the peace of Christ, a peace that is permanent and deep and secure. It's not something we achieve, it's something we receive. And the Lord was just dying to give it to us.